Letters to Lisa, Recording 11, Compilation 2, Vincent. This letter reached me by interesting means. A friend of mine is quite a keen car booter and found this letter inside a vintage desk she took home. She told me that she thought I'd pranked her somehow. I tried to explain to her the whole bizarre situation, but I don't think she quite believed me. Anyway, here is the well-kept secret desk letter. Dear Lisa, it's been quite a time since I had the mental strength to compose a letter to you. I hope you have not forgotten who I am, much like many others have. I write to you in desperate uncertainty, hoping your clarity may act as a beacon of light in the maze into which my mind has melted. This is the story of a man named Vincent. At one point in my life, I would have been positive that Vincent was me, but I'm not sure who I am anymore. To be honest, it began on my first voyage only 4 months ago. I was a young man, straight out of securing my degree in the studies of both biology and chemistry. How my mind raced with curiosities and begged to see the world. We set sail in January, or perhaps it was December of last year. Regardless, I distinctly remember pulling away from the port. The small wooden dock, fading in the distance, is so clear in my head. But upon the open seas, my mind did begin to fade. Shortly after crossing the horizon and witnessing nothing but an ocean of blue on all sides, I began to hear a voice within my head. "Hello, Vincent," the voice said to me. I looked around, expecting to see a crewmate announcing himself, but nothing. I was utterly alone. I thought about the peculiar nature of this voice and about how it sounded. It was crystal clear, soft and comforting, but not lacking authority. I shook my head, wishing to toss the thoughts away with the motion, but the voice continued. Vincent looked around, dumbfounded by the isolation that the high seas had bestowed upon him. I had heard of sailors and pirates losing their minds while embarking upon journeys of similar length, but never this soon. I knew that could not be what was happening, so I ignored the voice and continued on with my shiply duties. In the coming hours, I needed to steer us due east. I knew this perfectly. But after the voice's sudden appearance, I decided to consult my map before correcting the course. Sure enough, upon descending to my quarters and checking the directions, east would provide safe passage around the dangers of the rocky reef that lay ahead of us. So I returned to the helm and began to turn the wheel, but something stopped me. The voice stopped me. Vincent thought about correcting the ship's course, but upon further reflection decided that their current course was what was best for the crew and for him. The voice narrated thoughts that I wasn't having. I thought about turning the wheel and correcting our course. Hell, I even wanted to, but the voice rang throughout every corner of my head. It filled my brain, and there was nowhere in my own consciousness I could hide. I released my grasp at the helm and stepped back, having obeyed the voice, and left us on course. I was instantly filled with regret. I knew what this meant, but I could do nothing to fix my mistake. Every inch of my being needed to do what the voice said. Vincent descended from the helm and stood in the centre of the ship. The voice said. My first thought was that I had no intention of listening to this voice for a second time. But much like the first, I had no choice. My legs were moving before I could even register that I was in motion. I wanted to stop myself, but it was no use. I was already standing right where the voice wanted me. As soon as I stopped, I tried to sprint away, to get far away from what the voice wanted. I ran and quickly found my friend Geoffrey. I grabbed him by his shoulders. I opened my mouth to tell him what was happening and about the danger we now faced because of my involuntary actions, but I was interrupted. Vincent tried to warn Geoffrey of what was to come, but when Vincent went to speak, no sound escaped. The voice said, and it was right. I tried to speak, but nothing came from my lips. The words were turned to silence. Geoffrey saw the fear in my eyes, tears welling up as I tried to scream, wishing that anyone could hear the wails and pleading that exploded within my mind. But nothing. Geoffrey just returned my stare with a confused look. "Are you all right, Vin?" "What's the matter?" he said. I flapped my lips furiously a few more times, but the voice's hex held true, and no noise left my vocal cords. Vincent reassured Geoffrey that everything would be all right, and that there was absolutely no danger. The voice continued its torment, and I found myself speaking, but the words were not mine. "Everything's all right, Geoffrey. Just panicked for a moment," I said, but tried my best not to. Then Vincent walked away and stood at the ship's edge, staring at the water for quite some time. The voice continued, and as you can imagine, Lisa, I obeyed. My body brought me to the edge of the ship, and I simply stood there, frozen, staring at the horizon. It was quite a while. I knew our ship was headed for the underwater rock field, and that at any moment we would begin hitting and scraping the sediments that lie below. Sure enough, wham! The ship cracked into the first of what would soon be many obstacles. The jolting of the ship broke my trance, and I was finally free to move, but it was too late. The cracks and crashes rocked the ship so violently that I fell to the floor and slid with the slant. I looked at Geoffrey, and my eyes fell upon him just in time to see his body get swept under the crumbling wood and the ship's deck. The splinters and boards swallowed him and shredded his skin before my very eyes. Then it rocked in the opposite direction. I hadn't much time to register what was happening before I heard the voice again. Vincent flew through the air, coming face to face with the side of the rock cliff. The impact knocked him unconscious, and his own ship left him behind to the cold embrace of the waves that took him, it said. Of course, it was right. Blackness. I remembered nothing more of the crash. Sometime later I regained consciousness on the rocks, blooded and confused. I saw the floating wreckage of what I once sailed on. Some bodies of cohorts bobbed lifelessly in the water, somewhere, nowhere to be found. Everything was groggy. I barely remember my surroundings beyond the foam of the water and the black of the rocks I stood upon. The sun was setting. I'm not sure if it was the same night or the next. I was unaware of how long I'd been out. In a normal set of circumstances, I would have held out hope. I would have waited with bated breath and a deep hope that a ship may come and rescue me. But my heart was empty. I accepted my fate and stood still, waiting for the hunger, cold, and tide to take me under. "You are not alone, Vincent." No, I couldn't believe it. The voice had returned. I had convinced myself that it was a madness that was contained to the ship, but its continued presence proved my optimistic theory wrong. I let out an anguished scream. I wept as I came to terms that this voice would never leave me, and I'd die with nothing but its shrill echoes ringing in my head. "You will not die, Vincent. I will not allow it," the voice said. This should have comforted me, but I struggled between the warmth that this voice tricked me into feeling and my desire for the arms of death to put an end to this torment. As the tears in my eyes began to dry, I craned my head back and saw a small clearing of rocks opposite me. The rocks twisted and morphed together in a cacophony of marble and stone. Atop the beautiful structure stood an equally beautiful figure. At first I had trouble making it out. It was glowing a blinding light and stretched taller than I had ever seen any man stand. But it did not hold the form of a man. Its legs shined like crystals, and its iridescent skin shimmered in the golden hour sunlight. "It is I, Vincent!" The creature spoke to me, but its lips did not move. The voice I had been hearing emanated from its form and filled my head again. "You will live," it said. And a new calm finally washed over me. The unease of the situation melted away at the sound of its voice. And then music. A beautiful serenade of vocal chorus reverberated from every direction. It was sublime, more serene than I had ever heard before. It answered all of my questions and my doubts. It melted my fears. I closed my eyes to focus, and when I opened them, I was home. It's been some time since then, and I am still unsure of what happened. I resigned to thinking that I had imagined the entire trip. Maybe it was just all a long dream, a dark vision I perceived as real. But since then, I've lost all certainty of what is real and what is fabricated. Am I real? Am I Vincent? Or has the voice convinced me so? Just 2 nights ago, I saw the creature again. I heard its voice. It's here, on my island, and it instructed me to write this letter. I don't know what it wants or why it asked me to contact you, but I know I must. Please, Lisa, I need your help. I can sense it nearing me. It has entered my house and may be upon me this very night. I fear there is only one escape, and that I may not live long enough for you to read this letter. Please, please, write as soon as you read this. My life is in your hands. Well, I don't know what it is all about, the calls for actions in these letters that make me so terribly upset. Perhaps it's the fact that I don't know what I should do. I feel as though there must be something. Oh, well, that's put somewhat of a downer on my day. I can only hope that making a record of it will somehow, God knows how, help. That was Letters to Lisa, Recording 11, Compilation 2, Vincent. Written by Bri Power, read by Caroline Lawrie.